your expectation? Perhaps you can begin to just put it in the chat box. What is your expectation from the dialogue this evening? What are you expecting to take home with you? Just put it in the dialogue. And as you do that, feel free to introduce yourself. Let us know where you're joining us from. We're looking forward to make meaningful connections right here this evening. Let us know, where are you joining us from? What is your name? What do you expect from this dialogue this evening? What do you expect? Let's see what is coming in from the chat box. Anybody? Ali takers, introduce yourself. Let us know where you're joining us from. And perhaps as you do that, do let us know which one of Mrs. Sally Mahihu's books have you read? Which book have you read? You never know. There could be something for you to go home with this evening. Which book have you recently read? And perhaps what was your key takeout from that book? Let's hear from you, even as we are getting ready to get started. Yes, I see we have Esther, who is joining us from Kilifi. Welcome very, very much. Welcome very, very much, Esther, joining us from Kilifi. So this is the first in a series of conversations, and today's dialogue will specifically address the wolf in sheep's clothing. The wolf in sheep's clothing. What comes to your mind when you hear that topic? We have Josephine joining us from Nairobi. Karibu sana, Josephine. Sylvia joining us from Kericho. Welcome. We have Nduta joining us from Canada, and Nduta has a comment to make. She says, I have had some tough but teaching experiences in relationships. I have not read any of the books, but was curious to learn about Suspect Suitors. You're in the right place, Nduta. You are in the right place. We have Kezia, my namesake, joining us from Malindi. Karibu sana, Kezia. Irene Opondo from Nairobi, Kenya. Doreen is joining us from across the border in Uganda. Welcome, Doreen. We have Damaris from Kiambu. Judy from Karura, right here in Nairobi. Rita Njage joining us from Kiserian. You are yet to read any of Sally's book. It is a good read, a worthwhile read. So grab that copy. We have Njoki from Nairobi, Leah from Ngong. Welcome very much, everybody who is joining us. Keep introducing yourself. Let us know where you're joining us from. We have Maria Nato, the National Chairperson of Women in Business. Welcome very much. You have read Your Harvest and Your Legacy. Seasoned Servanthood. Excellent. This is awesome. Distress and Destiny. Your calling and positioning. This is really, really awesome. Kendi Ashitiva joining us from Nairobi, Kenya. A great, awesome crowd gathering for words of wisdom this evening. So thank you very much. To get us started this evening, I will just bring on screen Mrs. Sally Mahihu. She requires no introduction. Seasoned woman, woman of tremendous impact. Mrs. Sally Mahihu, if you can hear me, take the floor.
Thank you, Kezi. I just want to start my video. Just do my video, please, Kezi. I'm coming on, all of you attendees. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good afternoon, good evening to each and every one of you. My video is gonna come on in a few minutes. I am excited about this webinar, and it is the first of many that we're gonna do together to bring my books alive. My name is Sally Mahihu. What am I and who am I? I am a wife, a mother, an advocate, senior of over 35 years. I practice in Nairobi and Mombasa. I own my own law firm. I have some experience there. I'm an arbitrator. I'm a certified mediator. I am also a certified professional coach. I am a motivational and inspirational speaker. And I am also a minister of the gospel in my church. That's not my main full-time call, but I am more of a marketplace minister. And I have recently published 7 books. So I think you're wondering, in fact, there was somebody who once said, even if I know you, Sally, I think there's some fakeness. There are 7 books in a go, how? But it's not so magical because I had been preparing the materials and the content for more than 3 years. 3 years. I had the content, I had the material from my teachings, my mentorships, my coaching. I had all this material and I'd saved it up. And when the time came for me to polish it and structure it into the books, it took me 2.5 years to do that. And COVID helped because during COVID, when my manuscripts were in their raw data, is when I sat down those several months during the first lockdown, and I actually now polished them and put them together. And then I published them last December. On the 17th of December, I had a book launch. I had few people because of COVID, but that's when I launched the 7 books. And but first, before I tell you a bit about the books, I want to quickly also tell you about the Seasoned Woman Forum, because these webinars are by the Seasoned Woman Forum. The Seasoned Woman Forum is my baby. It is a vision that God gave to me. And basically, the vision is to provoke the woman in the marketplace. And who's the woman in the marketplace? It is you and I, the woman in business, in media, entrepreneurship, in politics, the family woman, the woman in the church, the woman in even education, every sphere, the different spheres of life, every woman who's out there fulfilling destiny, provoking you to discover your destiny, to locate your place of assignment. Where are you supposed to be? Which sphere of influence, which industry, which pillar in society? And once you locate it, to become a voice of influence, positive impact and influence. That's the vision of Seasoned Woman Forum. And the mission, we come together through mentorship sessions. We come together in events like luncheons. We debate, we speak, we interact on topics of mutual interest and that affect you and I, relationships, well-being, health, career, calling, all those kind of topics. We discuss business, entrepreneurship, money issues. We discuss all those kind of topics. And then we also have like one gala dinner a year where we focus on give back. One of our best gala dinners was where we hosted the First Lady, Her Excellency Margaret Kenyatta, because personally, I believe she's done a good job. She did a good job. And from the beginning, when she took over the seat, she wasn't one of those first ladies who walked around waving to us with her glove. She got on with it and she did an excellent job with Beyond Zero. So we had her and she provoked us. When we've come to a place where we can say that God has helped us, He's given us, we've been able to do accomplishments, we've been able to do business, we've been able to have a career where we can then stop and say, what am I giving back to society? So we believe in that in the Seasoned Woman Forum. And some of the programs we focus on are mentorship. I believe in mentorship. I'm a child of mentorship, whether it be mentorship in the legal profession by senior lawyers, whether like people like Lady Justice Loach, Lady Justice Effie Awar, my mentors in the legal profession, Advocate Raphael Dongo, people like that, and also spiritual mentorship. My spiritual mother is Reverend Teresia Wairimo, and she has mentored me. She's mentored me in issues of my marriage, my career, my calling, my giftings. I believe in mentorship. So Seasoned Woman is about mentorship, about helping another woman share in your experiences and how you got to where you got. We also believe in coaching, one-on-one and sessions. In fact, the mentorship is also sessions or one-on-one. We conduct those. And if you're interested, there's information that will come on the screen to tell you how we do this and how you can register. We have space for hire. By the grace of God, after a couple of years this is the 7th year of the Seasoned Woman Forum. We'll be having a big celebration at some point when COVID is off. We will not do it virtually. We will do it face to face, hug one another, greet one another. So we need to wait until it's really safe. And in those 7 years, we managed, God blessed us with a property, a place in Lavington where we have what we call the Seasoned Woman Center. We have space for hire where I welcome you women to come and hire space, do your programs, do your trainings, come and fulfill your vision there. Come and have your programs in a space, a quiet space. And we also have the Seasoned Woman Foundation. This is something I personally feel very strong about. It is girls from Korogosho. They are a group that is under a music foundation by my friend Liz Joroge. She mentors them in music. She took them from the slums. They have gifting in music. They play every sophisticated instrument that the British and the American children, the European children play. They don't have to have gone to the best schools in the country. They don't have to have had advantage. But Liz had advantage in a sense that she got educated abroad in classical music and instruments. And she went back and she trained these girls and boys from the slums. And she asked me to mentor the girls in lifestyle, in issues of life. And I've been doing it for several years now, my Korogosho Girls Mentorship Program. And recently, last year, I took on the mothers because I realized even as I mentor the girls, the mothers, they have issues with their moms. You know, there's the relationship issues, there's issues of respect and honor, and there's reasons why the girls sometimes end up the way they are. So I felt I need to get to the root cause of some of these things. So I'm also doing a program with their mothers. My dream, which I believe God will fulfill before the end of this year, is to set up a halfway house where when these girls, like sometimes when they kosana with their moms, they come and stay in my house or in my office, and we sort out the issues. Then I have mediation with their moms, then they go back. But I need a proper place for them where there's dignity, where we can mentor them and talk out the issues. We also have products. We have the Seasoned Woman Fashion Collection. I am wearing the Seasoned Woman Fashion Collection product. This top is from the Seasoned Woman. We have, most of you know our fashion collection. So I do a line. I'm not a designer, but I love fashion. So I have something, and we have a shop at the center. We also do branded gift items like mugs and umbrellas and notebooks and things like that. And this year, the two things we have launched are the YouTube channel. You see it on your screen, where most of the videos of past events and sessions I've had and teachings I've done are on that YouTube channel. And we're now launching, as of the middle of this month, the Seasoned Woman Talk Show. It is a talk show on YouTube, which will eventually go on to the TV stations. And this is where I'm addressing the ego woman. I am going to be interviewing women who have made impact, women who have gone ahead of us, women like Reverend Teresia Wairimo, women like Lady Justice Alwatch, women like Her Excellency Rachel Ruto, Margaret Kenyatta, Her Excellency. I'll be interviewing women like Margaret Kobia, women who we can honestly look and say they've made milestones. They've opened doors for us. They've gone through pathways that you and I would want to go through. So you'll watch out for the Seasoned Woman Talk Show. It is called Seasoned Conversations with Sally Mahihu. Will be coming on soon. So quickly now we go on to why we're here today. Today's conversation, yes, as I said, I've written 7 books, and these books, there are 2 of them. There's one about seasoned servanthood, which I wrote because I believe in servanthood, whether it's in the political arena, in the marketplace, in business. I believe that a nation that has a culture of servanthood, even with the leaders, it starts with the leaders, where we start off with true, genuine servanthood. That leads to true leadership. So that book, it's all about servanthood, not just in the church, but in the marketplace, in every sphere of influence. I've written a book of Distress to Destiny, and this is more or less my sermons. Anything I have preached on the platform at my church, Faith Evangelistic Ministry, has been compressed into that book about moving from a place of distress to destiny. Then I have a 5-series books, a series of 5 books. Book 1 is about your naming and defining identity, the voices that shape you. Talks about what makes you who you are, the triggers to an identity crisis, the passwords to your true identity. Book 2 talks about your calling and positioning. How do you know your calling? What are the obstacles? What are the tools you need? And that same book talks about your place of purpose, your place of your sphere. Where are you in the media? Are you in politics? You know, because sometimes we go to the wrong place and we don't thrive. You need to know, where are you ordained to thrive and make an impact? Is it in business? Is it in media? Is it in politics? Is it on the church pulpit? Where is it? You need to understand, is it in education? So that book talks about your calling and positioning, the giants you find there, how to slay those giants, how to establish yourself on that, where you've been called. And then book 3 talks about your relationships and networks. And that's the book the chapter we're discussing today comes from that book, your relationships. I've talked about your destiny killers, your destiny helpers, your sibling rivalries. I've talked about your workplace relationships. And of course, I wanted to start with your romantic relationships. I know every girl's heart goes, because that makes us. If you get it wrong in the romance department, then whether you're a CEO, whether you're the minister of what, whether you're the deputy president, if you're a woman and the heart issues are not in place, we know what happens. Whether you're deputy chief justice or the chief justice, somehow those issues have a way of bringing us down. And the reason why I wrote that book on relationships, because I realized that there is a very close connection between relationships and destiny. Once you make the wrong relationship choices, then it affects your destiny. So my desire is for us to learn how to make the right relationship choices, especially when it comes to the romance department. So that chapter deals with 7 types of suitors. 7 types of suitors. So very quickly, let me finish the other 2 books in the series. There is your making and shaping, which talks about your storms, your pain points, your scars, what you and I have gone through thick and thin. Here we are with makeup and lipstick and hair in place. We're all looking so nice. But you and I know that we've got stories to tell. We've been through, whether it's financial crisis, whether it's divorce, whether it's loss of children or by death, whether it's abuse, whatever kind of abuse, spiritual, financial abuse, sexual abuse. We've been through thick and thin. But you and I purpose to stand and still smile. Those are storms of a destiny woman. We purpose to fulfill destiny. That book talks about how to confront what you've been through, the issues that. And these are tests and trials that form you. They make you into a destiny vessel and into a woman that is resilient and will fulfill her destiny despite. The last book in that series is about your legacy and your harvest, because at the end of your walk, at the end of this journey where you go through the pain, that you pay the price, you suffer the sacrifices, there is a harvest. You will get there. You will fulfill your dreams. You will open that business. You will get into that marriage. You will have that vision opened. You will birth that baby, whether it's a physical or symbolic, and you will get your harvest. And there's a legacy to leave. So I talk about legacy. So back to today's conversation very quickly. We are addressing chapter 9 of my book on relationships and networks. I wrote this chapter on this topic of the suspect suitors, because out of experience from my legal profession, my mentorship, my coaching, therapy, I've come across women who will share their hearts with me. They will talk to me, my nieces, my mentees, my older women, even older than me. They've talked about having encountered a wrong suitor. Because in our journey to destiny and in our quest for true love, when you're looking for a destiny spouse, and even maybe when you're not looking, you will encounter suitors that will derail you from destiny if you're not sure, or they will cause such damage, such pain, such havoc, such destabilization in your life that it will take you so long to recover and get back on your feet and move on to where you are headed to your destiny. So I felt this topic was serious and strong enough. In fact, my editor, who is from the UK, when he read this, I told him, this is mainly to do with my African women. I don't know whether in Europe you have this. He said, this is exactly what happens in Europe. You know, it happens to all of us. So I balanced it. He gave me the idea to balance it, because before I was very biased. I just wrote the suspect suitor, the man, the dysfunctional suitors in the form of male. But he told me, Sally, for credibility, put also the dysfunctional suitress. There are women who are out there, trapping men, and hurting and causing a lot of damage. So this particular chapter talks about 7 types of suitors and their counterparts in the form of female. And the first one is the wolf in sheep's clothing. We are discussing that today in thorough detail. The second one is a serial deal chaser. And we'll talk about that in a different webinar, dates to be advised. Then there's a golden heir, the bearded baby. This is more like the mama's boy, the heir to his family's inheritance, and spoiled young man. And sometimes he's 60 and spoiled, or he's 28 and spoiled. Then we have the drama king, the superstar. Usually it's a sports personality or a actor or a TV personality who's after the looks. So you're either his trophy or his true love. You need to make up your mind, So we're going to discuss that much later. There's also the silver and the golden spoon charmer. This came up as a result of a movie we watched with my book club called Fall from Grace, about how an older woman can fall prey to a younger man. And she's established, she's got finances, and the young man comes with all the language she needs to hear. Maybe she's divorced, she had a horrible marriage, she didn't hear the good things. He comes speaking the right language, but before you know it, he's only after her money. So there's that charmer. He charms the golden girl, the older woman. Then there's a silver spoon charmer. He charms the little girl, the daddy's girl. And the counterpart for let me finish the suitors. Then the second chance ride is the man who's been married before. He's either divorced or widowed. So he's looking for a wife or somebody to move on with. And you need to be careful that you're not going to turn out to be Mama Cinderella. Yani you're there to look after the stepchildren. What is it really a relationship where he has time for you or not? Now, the counterpart of the second chance ride is Mama Cinderella, because she also she may have 3-4 children, divorced or widowed, and she may also look for a man to marry. And she's got kids. And the question is, as a young man or as a man of whatever age, count the cost as you get into that relationship. All these relationships can work, and they do work, but we need to explore how can we make them work. And then the counterpart of the wolf in sheep's clothing is the she-wolf, who's usually, we'll discuss her today. The counterpart for the serial deal chaser is a opera diva. This is the woman who sleeps on the couch the whole day, watches soap operas, does her nails and makeup, goes for tea parties at Westgate and the malls, doesn't want to lift a finger to do anything, wants to be taken care of. And when things go wrong and the man walks out, or maybe he passes away, she's left with her soap operas. So we need to talk about that kind of a woman who's looking for an easy way out. The counterpart for the golden heir and the bearded baby is a golden heiress. She's a daddy's girl. She's the one inheriting the family fortune. She's never had to do anything all her life. She's dropped out of school. Daddy's taken care of everything. And the question is, if as a man you get into a relationship with her, there is issues to be addressed in that relationship. And we're going to talk about that later. The golden and the silver spoon charmer, the counterpart in the form of the female is the pension pot chaser. I mean, there are women who look at the pension this guy is going to get. They look at he's loaded. There are women who go to cocktails or to parties or to even churches. They look to see this guy looks like he's loaded. He's got this and this. How can I capture him? So it's got nothing to do with love. We need to address that. And I've already told you the second chance ride, it's Mama Cinderella. And then there is the silver-haired fox, more or less like a sponsor, the older man who goes for the college university girl, and she falls for it. She is the foxy vixen. They're not as innocent as sometimes they look. Sometimes they are innocent. Sometimes they know it's wrong for you to break up a marriage. It's wrong for you to be sponsored by this man, to have his baby, to taunt the wife and the family. They know it sometimes. But also, let me put a rider here. Every one of these suitors and suitresses is either your daughter or my daughter. She's either your sister or my sister, your mother or my mother. They're ours. They're not people from another, they're not aliens from another planet. These suitors, these men, these wolves in sheep's clothing, these serial deal chasers and these drama kings and charmers, they're our sons, our brothers, our uncles, our fathers. So we need to be very mature in how we address these dysfunctions in them, that we're not saying we're throwing you away or writing you off. We're looking for solutions. We're looking for healing. We're looking for transformed lives. So we need to not be too judgmental how we address the issue, even as we discuss the negatives about it. So basically, I wanted to give that rider because sometimes we think we're talking about a foreigner or an alien. No, you'll find it is your friend's brother who is doing like that, or your uncle, or somebody you know and love, you know? So let's be very careful how we address it. So the structure of today's conversation, I have a panel of wonderful men and women, and I chose them very carefully because I have a responsibility. My spiritual mother, Reverend Wairemu, taught me, every time you open yourself up to the public, when you're going to feed them, you need to be very careful what you tell them. These are God's people. These are people whose lives are in the balance, and you need to be very careful what content you're giving them and who you bring to them to give them content. You need to choose very wisely. So I have chosen very carefully and very wisely. And some of you may not even agree with some of the people I've chosen, but this is something I've prayed about, and there's a reason I've chosen each and every one of them. And by the end of the conversation, you will see why. And they're going to, I will introduce them in a minute, but they will respond to questions that I will ask them. And they will respond to one question each at a time, and we'll go around in rotation. And then I'll go back to them again for the second question and the third question. And this will build up because it will give you questions, and you'll be asking your questions and writing them on the chat group, or you will raise your hand and their two co-hosts will ask you at the Q&A section. You will ask your questions. We'll answer your questions, and whatever we don't answer today, I undertake to you, I will follow you up and answer your questions. I will invite you for a one-on-one. I'll invite you and make sure you've been answered to the best of our ability. So we move on now to our main menu, which is the panelist session of discussing this wolf in sheep's clothing. Or maybe there's some of you who haven't read the book, haven't read the chapter. So I'm going to give you a couple of characteristics in my book about a wolf in sheep's clothing and a she-wolf, what tendencies and characteristics they portray. And the purpose of this webinar is I want to hear more. I want to hear from the panelists and from you. What are the characteristics are you aware of that I've left out? What else manifests in these characters that I'm not aware of or haven't written in my book? Let's expound on what I've written. So basically, when you're dealing with the wolf in sheep's clothing, this is a man who it's a relationship dilemma where there's a conflict of core values. You have a conflict in your core values. What you believe in and what you stand on, your principles, your core values, differs from what he stands on. It's like the fish and bird dilemma. A fish and a bird can fall in love, but where in the world will they live? Will they live in the air or in the sea? One of them is going to die. So that's what I'm talking about. Relationship dilemmas where you have such a conflict in your principles and values that you can't really gel and move on unless you deal with those issues. And also a wolf and a sheep. In this context, you are the sheep and he is the wolf. And a wolf and a sheep are natural enemies. You know, there are things like oil and water. There are things that just don't gel. And the nature of a wolf is to kill the sheep, is to destroy the sheep. So you need to ask yourself whether that kind of relationship can work without issues being dealt with. They're natural enemies. The wolf and the sheep are natural enemies. Then it is when there's deception in a wolf in sheep's clothing. He applies a lot of deception, a lot of camouflage. You never quite see the real person. He will display a characteristic. You'll go to a restaurant or you go to a function. You will see a different person, a camouflage where he's behaving like somebody who he's not, because the real true him is inside. Then there's manipulation, because deception comes with manipulation, and there's a control element there where he convinces you things are what they're not. And then there's lies and distortions. You'll see gaps in his story. He'll tell you he was in Gichuki last weekend to see his auntie. Then he will then forget and say, oh, when I had this burger at Burger King on Saturday, then you're like, I thought you said you were in Gichuki. There are little things like that. You'll see distortions and gaps in his story. And then also there's anger issues. A wolf snarls. A wolf is angry all the time. A wolf, when you meet a wolf wants to tear and destroy. So there's an anger in a man who's a wolf in sheep's clothing. So you find him reacting and getting angry at situations. And that comes out, it's subtly hidden, but it starts to come out when he cracks under the veneer and under the camouflage. He resents authority. He resents authority. So you find where you're submitted to a spiritual authority, or to your parents if you're a single girl, or to somebody like elders or bosses. He constantly seeks to manipulate you to disobey authority, to disobey even the leadership in the nation or things like that. Wolves do not submit to authority. Sheep submit to authority. They hear the voice of their shepherd and they submit. And then with a she-wolf, she's a wounded woman. She's a woman who once was in relationships where she was so wounded, so hurt by different men in different relationships. And she reached a point where she said, enough is enough. I am going to be the one who hurts people. I'm going to be the one who manipulates them. I'm going to be the one who controls them. And she's lost trust. So she's wounded, she's bitter, and she's angry. And she's looking for a strong man, usually who's already strong, who she can emasculate and really pull down and make him into a eunuch, where he's really a whimpering little somebody without any power, any strength. Or she's looking for an already weak man who she then controls, and she lacks trust. And that's why I'm saying, let's not be so judgmental, because this woman was once okay, but things happened and she ended up the way she is. Others may have ended up like that without any reason to, but let's have that in mind. So I'm going to go straight into our panel session and introduce my very able panel before I call the first one to answer. I have with me today a man of God I honor. He's my brother in terms of faith, in terms of we sit under the same spiritual mother. He is Reverend George Mathu. He is a prophet of God. He's a man of God. He has taught me a lot. He has fed me like a younger sister in the things of the Lord and guided me, corrected me, rebuked me. I have a lot of respect for him. He has a church, he goes faith, he's feeding the sheep. He is directing a lot of people towards where they should be in God. That's Pastor George Mathu. I then have a friend of mine called Zippy Musyimi, a good friend of mine. She is someone I met who really challenged me in terms of even governance, in terms of governance and policy and national issues. I met her when she came as a delegation to teach about security in our church. But Zippy's record of mentorship and her work in the church, her work with the youth and outside has really, really, really impressed me. And we've worked together in the Korogosho project. Somebody else in the team is Pastor Jackie Othoro. This is my sister, but I honor and respect this woman of God. She's probably years younger than me, but to me, she is my senior in the body of Christ. She's a woman who calls it as it is. I choose her often because she blends the marketplace principles with the godly principles very well. And she's kept her integrity. She's worked with the single women. She knows what they go through. And then I have Robert Burale. He's my brother as well. I don't know him very well. We met recently through one of my other brothers. The reason why I chose Robert is because he has he's talked to us in our church about marriage and relationships. And I could tell he had points and principles from a man's point of view that we women needed to hear. Sometimes we don't want to hear the truth, but Robert calls it as it is. He's called the coach. I honor and respect this man, and I know he will have a lot to share with us today. Rose Gichuki from Stanbic, my sister as well, a solid woman of God in the financial market. She's in the sphere of business and economy. She is empowering women through the banking industry. She's the head of DADA at Stanbic, and she's doing a commendable job in empowering women. So we have a connection because I am so passionate about empowering women in all fronts. So we're working together on that, and she's going to be with us today. There is the last but not least is who I'd call my younger sister. And she's Waguthi minor. I honor and respect this woman. She's a therapist. She's an author. She is a counselor, a mediator certified. She's a coach. And she is also a truth. You know, she speaks it as it is. She calls it as it is. She's solid on the inside. And we have so much in common. And I know on this area of relationships, she will have a lot to share. Each of these panelists will be able to share a bit more about themselves in terms of what they do, what help they can offer you even going forward after this session. So I will go straight to Pastor Jackie Othoro. Pastor Jackie, I chose you to open our discussion. So I'm going to ask you the first question, and it goes as follows. Have you ever personally encountered a wolf in sheep's clothing? How did you detect or discern him? Welcome, Pastor Jackie.
Okay, thank you, Sister Sally. And yes, you are my big sister. How dare you say I'm your older sister? As always, it's a pleasure to be with you. I enjoy our forums, our conversations, because you always leave me challenged, honestly. 7 books in 1 year, Mama. We have much to catch up, I tell you. But let me, I'm looking forward to getting through all of them and just learning from them. So the first question, wow, that's a tough one. Let me say this from off the straight, the top. I'm single and I'm 51 years old. And it's not a state I thought I would be in when I was 26. You know, I did not see myself as being single at 51. I knew I'd follow the path of everybody else. And through, searching, being with people, be married by 28, be done with children by 33, 34, and then life is good. But here I am. I'm 51. I'm single. I don't have a child. And the last time I went on a date was, just to put some context in this, that I had a date was... you see, I can't even remember. It was that far back. Yeah, I'm trying to really figure out, when did I go on a real date? It was a long time ago. So when I come to this conversation, I come at it sometimes not so much my own personal experience, but because of the many years that I've walked with different women and just being a pastor in this city, and specifically, I would say a pastor to many single women who are older, in their 40s and 50s and beyond. So when you ask the question, have I met a wolf in sheep's clothing? Unfortunately, I will say yes.
Okay.
I will say yes, unfortunately, and it wasn't someone that I was, relating to, but it was someone very close to me, was relating with, and they actually got into a relationship that did end up, all the way in marriage. Now, if you look, those 7 points, I think you have about 7 points about the characteristics of a wolf in sheep's clothing. I tell you, Minister Sally, he ticked them all.
Yeah.
He ticked them all.
Yeah.
And he showed different facets of himself to different people, friends of this woman he was dating. And he was a smooth operator. Nobody could see him coming. But as we got to know him better and better, there was this sense of just discomfort. Because one of the things that he did was that he was an incredibly smart man. I mean, as in smart up here, oh my goodness. I don't know whether I've come across, a smart person like this man. But because he was that smart, he also knew how to manipulate people. And he manipulated everybody around this person, starting with her, to the point that, it took us a while before we could see through the facade. Now, the problem was also that he, manipulators, wolves in sheep's clothing, they're coming to eat the sheep, but because, wolves are beautiful creatures as well, are they not? No matter how dangerous a wolf looks, when you look at a wolf, it's a beautiful creature. And so he came. I mean, this guy was dressed in the latest fashion. He was educated abroad, went to top universities, had the right pedigree of family. That we saw the outside, we saw the outside. And eventually, obviously, when we finally got to know who he was, what he began to do was he began to separate us from his target. He began to separate from his target. He began to say things about us and saying, we are not for them, we are jealous, all kinds of stories to get his target isolated from everybody that cared for her. And as I said, they did get married, and the marriage lasted 7 years. It lasted 7 years, and it broke up in a very difficult manner. While he was married to this girl, he had 2 girlfriends. One in 2 different countries. Let me put it that way. That's how extra this person was.
Oh, yes.
In 2 different countries, and his wife was supporting these women without knowing, because he was living off her. And he would get money from her. They were living in a 3rd country, not here in this country, Kenya, in another foreign country, and living off her. And she was supporting this other woman and the child, because she was the one who was the breadwinner. So yes, a wolf in sheep's clothing is, I'll say it bluntly, these are dangerous people.
That's right.
Because he broke.
Yeah.
He broke that girl. He broke her,
yeah.
And it took many years, even after the divorce, and because they did get divorced. Well, actually, they didn't get divorced. When they're getting towards getting divorced, he died in a car accident. So they never did get divorced. But it took almost 10 years to recover.
And we'll come back to recovery, Pastor Jackie. Yeah. We're going to deal with recovery. How does one get out of that?
Right.
Later on. Now, Pastor Jackie, you've talked about, let me say a quote in my book here. I think it's by an unknown person, and it says that the devil doesn't come in a red cape and pointy horns. He comes as everything you've ever wished for. You see, that's a deception right there. You've added another characteristic that I don't have in my book, and that's he's very sharp and very intelligent. Normally, a wolf in sheep's clothing is not a dull boy. They're not. Almost wish if he could apply that intelligence in positive, honest ways, he would honestly get very far. Thank you. Thank you for pointing out about isolation. They isolate. A wolf will isolate the sheep so that he can kill the sheep on its own. So if he sees the sheep has other friends and family support, he wants to undermine them and make you believe they're not good for you. Exactly. So he isolates you, and you're the only person, he's the only person you're relating to. And before you know it, you're alone, you have no advice. Thank you, Pastor Jackie, for that. He's a global operator. Yes. Normally they will have a wife in Kakamega, in Isiolo, so thank you for pointing out that this guy had people in different countries. Thank you so much for that, Pastor Jackie. Yes, that's right. These are global smooth operators. Now we go to, next is to Coach Robert. Welcome, welcome. You're looking very nice in pink. Karibu, I love the logo behind you. Robert, I love confidence. My spiritual mother always tells us, be confident. Just be confident. Do you. And let others catch up with you and do what they need to say. So I like your boldness. I like your logo. I like your pink. Welcome on board, Coach Robert. Thank you. As a coach, Coach Robert, how often have you had to coach ladies who were involved with wolves in sheep's clothing?
Well, as recent as yesterday morning, first and foremost, allow me to thank you for this opportunity. I don't take it for granted. But before I even answer the question, anybody who knows my story from the past, man, when I was in the UK, I was the top dog, I had a woman, tell us about it, Robert. I had a woman from almost every country until I was nicknamed the United Nations, I do understand, what happens sometimes with the ladies, the mistake they make, and any lady here means that sometimes when you are in love or when you like this guy so much, the red flags appear purple, and you ignore the signs. The guy is trying to isolate you from your family, and he's saying, oh my goodness, you're the shoulder, you are the wind beneath my wings. No, please, ladies, wake up, Oh, he got me my Brazilian weave. I used to have synthetic. What you got to understand, most ladies say this thing, I didn't see this coming. And then you ask them 3 questions and they say, yes, I noticed that. I noticed that. I noticed that. Then I said, isn't that all the signs you needed? Oh, but I didn't know, And there's a lady I was dealing with that this guy would even go with her to a prayer center. And she said, this man is the deputy Holy Spirit. But as they are going to the prayer center, he is isolating her and also making her feel that without him, she is a nobody. Like he is the be all and end all, that the only thing she can do for herself is breathe. And even breathing, she needs to breathe around him. But all that was camouflaged, or all that was diluted just by the guy going with her to a prayer center. And that was part of the game. You understand what I'm saying? So yes, I have seen that. I have talked to many. But the problem, I'm sorry, and I mean, some ladies may not like with what I'm about to say, and I will say it as it is. Many ladies get excited when they have good sex.
Okay. Let's talk about it, yes?
And I'm talking about tongue speaking, demon chasing, and heaven bound worship leading. There is so much sex before marriage in church than in the world. Oh, so the guy says, oh my goodness, he has good sex until when I think about him, I just hear zzz, and then you forget everything else that he's doing to you. And as the Reverend said, Othoro, is that it takes years. Somebody took 10 years to recover. And I'm going to say this, 10 years for a lady to recover is a lot of time wasted.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm a divorced man. Absolutely. I'm a divorced man. I'm silver fox. I've said, you've said silver fox, but I'm an anointed silver fox. But what I'm saying is 10 years for a lady to recover is a lifetime. You know, men recover faster and easier than women. So women need to be absolutely careful. And I'm hoping by this, I mean, this book has blown me away, and every lady, and if there's a lady here who has another 20 ladies they mentor, they have to buy these books for them because it will help them not go into some dangerous spaces. So yes, the one thing is the ladies tell me is that I didn't see it coming. Yet, if 100 ladies told me I didn't see it coming, 98 will answer yes to the questions that I ask. That would mean the telltale signs were there. But the 2%, the guy worked so hard in the 2% that the 98%, the lady blinds it away until the guy moves on and marries another woman who is innocent, and they live happily ever after. And that is why, Madam, we have many bitter ladies, not because they are bad people. They invested. When a woman gives you 1 year of her time, she has given you her heart. A man can meet a woman at 6:01 and tell the woman, I love you at 6:02. When a woman tells you, I love you, they have given their all to you. So if you take it and rubbish it, you have now even spoiled for a very good, godly man that would meet the lady 2 months later. So yes, this happens. They have said this, but the telltale signs, many have seen. But as I said, the red flags appear purple.
Are there. Ladies, you've heard it for yourself. And let me, that's why I told you at the beginning, let's not be so judged. Let's listen to somebody like Coach Robert, who says he was a player. He was a wolf. Were you a wolf, Robert? He was a wolf at some point.
I was the chairman of the club.
He was the chairman of the Wolves in Sheep's Clothing. So let's not be so narrow-minded. Let's welcome whoever has the experience to share with us. Because the idea is, who best can tell you how a wolf operates as somebody who's done it himself? Thank you, Pastor Robert, for being honest. And I knew I chose you for a reason, because I wanted you to be candid about this topic. And I like what you said about the excitement, this blind excitement where we get into a relationship. You're an intelligent woman. You probably have a PhD, or even if you don't have a PhD, you're ordinarily a wise woman. You know better than this. In other areas, you make the right decisions, but suddenly you can't make a proper decision. You can't see the red flags. This excitement, we need to sober up, because I think we need to have this mindset of like, my destiny. Every decision I make regarding a relationship affects my destiny. So I need to stop this excitement like I'm 13 years old and have a crush on this guy. Thank you. Thank you for telling us about strategy. Strategy. That normally a wolf has strategy. And this woman is sitting there innocent. He's planned it all. He knows where to take you. In fact, in my book, I write about, he learns you. He learns your art, what you like, whether you like dogs or cats, which music you like. He knows you like his fingertips. So he has a strategy sorted out from the beginning. And then you said something, Coach Robert, that men recover faster. Did you hear that, ladies? Men recover faster. So a woman is here recovering, you know, she's fallen head first, and she takes so long to recover because, as you've correctly said, we give our hearts. And thank you for supporting my point that by the time a woman becomes a she-wolf, she's been through so much pain. It's not that she was originally a she-wolf, it's because of what she's gone through. And she just becomes bitter and angry because of the way she's been treated by he-wolves, by the wolves in sheep's clothing. Thank you so much for that candid answer.
Thank you.
I'm going to move now to Waguthi, my friend Waguthi Mahugu. And your question is, do you think that a woman normally knows when she's dealing with a wolf in sheep's clothing, but she somehow chooses to ignore the red flags? Now, this has nothing to do with Robert's question. I worded it carefully because it's not a question of where she doesn't see the red flags. She's, in this case, Waguthi, she sees the red flags, but she chooses not to see the red flags for whatever reason. She knows he's not the right one. Tell us, do you think that happens? And why do you think women, what are the factors that make me ignore the red flags even if I can see them? Where's the desperation in that? What is it?
Okay, thank you, Sally. Thank you for this opportunity. The answer is yes and no. And it's not a very easy answer. So if you'll allow me, I'll go into a little bit of depth. Now, in psychology, we talk about 4 ways of relating, 4 ways of being, how people behave when they get romantically involved. And the 4 ways that people relate to has an element of how they were treated as children. So that's why I said it's not a very easy, it's not a yes or no. So allow me to tell you what the 4 are, and then I'll tell you why certain women would seem to get into reckless, or even men for that matter, get into reckless relationships. So psychology divides people in 4 categories. There is one that is called the secure attachment. Now, when a baby is born, they normally would not even know where the breast is. So they just look for it and then they start breastfeeding. Now, if this child has a mother who is consistent, who is sensitive and quick to respond to the child, this child then becomes secure. And not just from the breastfeeding, but even later in life. So it's the first few years. So if the mother is consistent all the time and sensitive and quick to respond, this child begins to believe that their needs will be met. Now, when this child becomes a mature person, now when they get into a romantic relationship, they get into what we call a secure attachment style. And this is a person who gets into a relationship, they have mutual trust, they understand that there will be inevitable challenges. And when they get these challenges, they do not define themselves with the challenges in the marriage. For instance, if there's a problem, they do not first assume there's something wrong with themselves. They look at it like, we have a problem, how do we deal with this problem? So that's the first, and that is the ideal. Now, the others are the problematic ones. The second one is the one you call the avoidant attachment. The avoidant attachment is a child who has a mother who, for whatever reason, is distant and disengaged. So this child becomes insecure and anxious and begins to believe that their needs may or may not be met in life. And what this person becomes when they grow up, they become what we call dismissing style, attachment style. And this person avoids intimacy. So they get into relationships, and at the very same time, they keep trying to disengage. And I'm sure you've heard of women who become just drama queens when they're in a relationship. So they are breaking up, they are accusing the person of cheating, they are doing all manner of things, and yet they really do not even want the relationship to end. So that's the second category. The third category is the one we call the fearful avoidant. And the fearful avoidant is the one who has a mother who is very inconsistent. The mother can be, one time the mother is consistent, the other time they neglect the child. So what this child then does is they stop believing that they start doubting that they'll always be getting their needs met. When this person grows up, they become fearful. So they are very similar to the one I've mentioned. And what they do is they want to get into a relationship and then they are scared of getting into the relationship. And I'll tell you how this comes, all this ties up. Now, the fourth one is the most problematic. And this is what we call the disorganized attachment. This child is born, comes into a family, either there's a lot of violence or the mother is unwell, could even be maybe going through depression, or the mother is unable to handle issues. So sometimes they even let off the steam with the child. So the child is perhaps also, manhandled in the process. This person becomes severely confused and has no strategy for finding, they have no strategy to have their needs met. When they become adults, the number thing they do is they attach very quickly. These are the people who meet a person and within a week, they tell the person, I love you. Within another few days, they're sleeping with the person. And the reason they do this is because they want to attach very quickly so that they are not left alone. And the other characteristic of this last person is that they normally will try and associate with people of value because then they feel that it reflects on them better. Mm-hmm. Now, the reason I've given this for is because you can begin to see how a conman, because that's what I'll call this wolf, yes, is able to go to each person. And remember, a lot of conmen, in fact, I think all conmen, if they have a common denominator, is that they're intelligent. Yes. Because that person, they need to just look at you and know what it is that you need. So when you look at these four people, if the person can detect that this person is scared of rejection, the first thing they'll tell you is, you know what, I'll never leave you in spite of whatever happens to us. Now, they're addressing such a core wound that this person becomes blind to everything else. Or even for the one who wants to associate with people of power, this person comes and talk about how powerful they are. This person falls in love immediately. So to answer your question, would a woman go blindly into such a situation? Yes and no, because they may not consciously know why they are doing what they are doing, but it's because they have not addressed deeper wounds. Now, there's somewhere in your book that you say that we must revisit our pasts to be able to have a brighter future. Honestly, I don't think it's a luxury for any woman. You must be able, because I always say that if your back is not bent, nobody can ride on it. So the onus is on you to ask yourself, where is my back bent? And do what you need to do. It should, whether it's therapy, whether it's coaching, whether it's counseling, you must look for someone to help you to remove whatever it is that someone will come and hatch on. So I think I've answered your question on that one.
You have done that. Okay. Yeah. You have done that, Waguthi, and I will not even dare try to summarize it. What I'm going to do is ask you to tell our listeners where they can find you. Because Waguthi, I told you one of the main issues of, one of the main goals of this webinar is to point the listeners to sources where they can go for solutions. This 1.5 hours is not going to give them, we're not going to cover everything, but there needs to be a follow-up. So I need you to tell our listeners what you do. You're a therapist, Waguthi?
Yes, I am. I'm a transformational coach, and what I do is I help people to improve on their skills and competencies so that they can live a fulfilled life. And I do that by teaching, coaching, and therapy where required.
That's good. And because when you've given these 4 characteristics, if I was a single woman, or I would want to come and pour myself out to you, and we look and see, do I fall into these categories? Is there a tendency in me to attract one of these conmen or wolves? Yeah. Yes. So that's why I asked that. Now, your information is with me where you can be found. And with your permission, I will share it with the ladies who asked or the men who asked so they can follow you up. But thank you so much for that in-depth. Thank you, because from what I've understood, Waguthi, is that there are tendencies in us that cause us to be more pliable, more susceptible, fall prey and victim to a conman and a wolf in sheep's clothing. Sometimes even unconsciously, we may not actually. You and I may look at her and say, what's wrong with her? Why can't she see he's a conman? But you're saying the other factors that come into play that she may not be able to discern so fast like other people, yeah? Thank you. We'll come back to you later. Now, let me go to Rose Gichuki. Rose, tell me, now, of course, in all this where a woman falls prey to a wolf in sheep's clothing, there is issues of finances. You know, you're in the financial industry, you're there empowering women to get financial independence, financial freedom, be able to stand on her own financially, not even as a statement of feminism or like there's something wrong with men, but just as a sign of responsibility. Even if there are men in our lives, there is an element of responsibility where we need to be financially empowered and contribute our lot to society and to the family. So how can women protect their finances and resources from the hands of a wolf in sheep's clothing? Because a wolf in sheep's clothing, as we heard later from one of the panelists, will target your finances. Remember, they are looking for an easy way out into life, yeah? And so one of the things they'll manipulate you about is what you already have. And the question is, how can we talk to our daughters, talk to the women out there, tell them how can they protect their resources from the onset so that even if they meet a wolf in sheep's clothing and they're testing to see whether he's the real thing, their finances are protected. Tell us about it, Rose.
Hi, Sally, and thank you so much for having me on board. And everybody, how are you? My name is Rose Gichuki. I work at Stanbic Bank, head of women banking. And of course, I'm sure some of you have heard about DADA. I don't know how I want to look at it, but it's been a very interesting discussion going on, Sally. The Burale, the United Nations, the red flags and the purple colors. And I've just been dying here, Deputy Holy Spirit. I like that he can actually talk about it. I think maybe next time we should just have men telling us where we go wrong or what is it that the woman is really lacking in, and probably vice versa. Yes. So on the money front, of course, there are many. I don't know how to put it. There are many spaces we can go in. As a woman, when you're starting out in your career, you've just gotten your first job or you've just started your first business. Before you meet even that wolf, what are your aspirations? What are your dreams? Where are you going? Have you organized yourself in such a way that you can stand on your own 2 feet without that other person? I think those are conversations maybe which we can have on another day on how to enable the younger woman to get into a relationship as a person who already has something for herself. What kind of trainings can we give them? Financial fitness training. Now, this woman goes and meets the guy you're calling the wolf, although I think from where I sit, he sounds like a very narcissistic, is it a narcissist? Yeah. Narcissist. Yeah. Narcissist. So it sounds like what you've described there is actually the characters of a narcissist. And there's a group I'm honored to be in where they you know, the way they call in Kiluya, they say Omundu, and others say, these ones call them Omunak. A narcissistic person. So this is an Omnak. So this Omnak. So this, yes. I'm sure they are smiling where they are, but the Omnak is an interesting person. And I think from the bank point of view, if you're dealing with such a character, then because I think most of the times we know, like we've been told, it's just that we are in denial. So if you know you're dealing with such a person, whether it's a man or a woman, because even you can be in a business, Sally, me and you can be in a business, but you're not a good person or I'm not a good person. So how do you protect yourself? It's the same thing with a man. How do you protect your assets? One, don't get into business together.
Yes.
Don't probably have don't probably have accounts where he's it's your money, but he's the sole signatory because you could lose it because he's also a very powerful character from what I'm reading here. Then don't give him, like if you had like a plot before you married, don't then give the security if you know this is the kind of person you're dealing, because if he defaults, and probability of him defaulting because of the nature of his character is very high. And these things, by the way, apply even within families. It's not just even to just the wolf. It could be anybody. It could be your sister. It could be your brother. It could be. So if you know you're dealing with a character who is not straight, then you will have financial drama for sure. Then secondly, if you know you're in that space again, so are you educated enough on how to invest? Where are you keeping your money? How are you protecting your investments? You're a working woman, you're a woman in business. Are you even insured? Have you insured your business in case something happens to you? You know, how are you protecting? How are you planning? Yeah? How are you creating this wealth? And then are you just sitting there and waiting for him to just supply also? Or are you doing something?
About it,
About it, even if it's kuuza mandazi. Sally, I've even given you the example of hankies, 50 bob to 250 shillings. And make that 1,000 bob a day, umekula nyama, umekula, and you've regained your independence. Remember, money, it's good to have money. When a woman has a bit of money, you don't feel as helpless as when you don't have, and then on top of that, you have to deal with a character. So who are you working with in your financial journey who can help you find your footing? It doesn't matter. It's never too late to start. Once you understand what you are with, because sometimes people won't be able to leave, others will be able to leave. Others, like Jackie here has told us, relax, uko peke yake, 51, what Jackie Othoro, what is she doing with her money? So all those things, So there are spaces where you can find somebody to guide you on how to start again. It is called 1 shilling today. If you put another shilling tomorrow, it will be called 2 shillings and 3 shillings and 4 shillings. It will never be 1 bob again. So it is, how do you restart that journey?
That's right.
So, but protect what you have, talk to the experts, come, tell us this is happening. Remember, in a bank, there's confidentiality. You cannot share Sally's information with even your husband. Neither can you share information of the husband with Sally. So there are many ways of skinning this cat. I don't know if I've answered you effectively.
Yes, and more importantly, Rose, you've told them what you and I have discussed, that at some future time, we're going to have conversations specifically on financial freedom and financial intelligence, and also avoiding these financial dramas. You know, I like what you said, financial dramas, because finances is a journey. This financial journey, as you create wealth as a woman, whether in the context of a marriage or even outside a marriage, it's a journey. And we need to have separate conversations you and I have talked about, where we will invite the women to come and you'll talk to them, you and your team, about the wisdom and the strategies and what's available, let's say, at your bank for the woman through the Dada project in terms of consolidating her finances and her investments. And that is something to come in the future. Thank you, Rose. Thank you.
It's actually called, Sally, it's actually called a financial, we have a financial fitness academy. And by the way,
fitness academy.
The Dadas, the Kakas, remember the bank is for everybody. So you're all welcome, and we can have those sessions where we will teach them how to create and build. We can teach them how to save and invest. We can teach them how to protect and how to share and legacy. Somebody like you probably will be going into the sharing and legacy space. You have this money, what are you doing with it? Will it make sense 20 years from now? So we can bring in the experts and have that financial fitness class one of these days,
Very good, Rose. I like that. I like, and I think what I would, my take point here, what I'd like to tell the ladies is separate your, as a girlfriend and a boyfriend, separate your finances, please. Separate those issues of finances. You're not yet married. So stop this issue at you're already consolidating your finances together. You have not gotten the ring. I think it's very important to first separate your finances with this boyfriend before you, until you know the way forward until you know whether he is the one that you're going to end up in life about. Don't be in a hurry. And I think there is situations I have come across from mentoring and coaching when women buy men with money. There's this thing like, if I lend him money, he's not doing well, he's a wolf, he needs money, and the more I give him, the more he'll want me. You know, it's never the answer. And I think you need to be sharp, have a relationship, test him out, but say the financial issues are separate. Yani, we don't do money. You know me, I tell my friends, there's different things you can say with a friend. We don't do money, we do this, we do this. So it's very important for that separation. Thank you, Rose. And more importantly, about the future webinars we're gonna do with you and the women on that Financial Fitness Academy. Very, very, very good. I like what you said about being in denial, because there are times when we are in denial about who we are hooking up with. And I think today my provocation to the women is, we've had enough, you've suffered enough. Let's face the facts now. It hurts later, it really delays your destiny. Let's face the facts now before it's too late. Very, very good. Thank you, Rose. I'm now going to go quickly to Zippy. Zippy, you're set. And your first question is, what are the root causes that lead a man to become, in your opinion, because I know you've done a lot of studies on family, behavior, sociology, and everything. What are the root causes that lead a man to become a wolf in sheep's clothing? Is it genetic, hereditary? Is it socialization, or just pure deceit?
Thank you, Sally, for having us this afternoon. Good afternoon to all of us. Good morning, wherever you're listening from. Two words came through. The word red flag, that we must keep note at the back of our minds. And then there was the issue of a conflict between yourself, your environment, yourself here means values, and the environment is where you're operating from. So the coach in me is going to approach this with questions, because we're having a conversation, so that we can dig deep. This is a well session. We want to draw. We could be in these situations. We could have seen people in this situation. You could be a victim. I could be a victim in any of this situation. So judgment suspended. Let's deal with the issues. So there's a possibility, one, that the wolf has an identity crisis. We are all born in families. None of us chose where we would be born. We just found ourselves in families. Families have DNAs, families have histories, families have genetic situations. We stumble on them, we discover them by default, we become victims. And we really cannot squeeze the blood in our veins. We carry that DNA. So it is important for whoever we are relating with, if we see a sign, to quickly stop and ask, why is there a false identity? Where is there a split personality? Why are we pretending? Anytime you pretend, you're hiding the truth. So what is the truth? Now, majority of us don't like the truth, because sometimes the truth is fearful. So we bury our head in the sand and we just assume he will change. I will deal with him. So we need to address the issue of identity. In the traditional African setup, those who are married, and even if you are not, you have had, one of the questions people ask is, do you know this person very well? Do you know their family? This really is where the pack is. Because if there is a trait, if there is a tradition, and you do your own background check, then we will not be so shocked. So there's a possibility somebody is born, somebody has grown up, somebody has been socialized, and there is some form of false identity. The red flag to look out for is, what is the crisis in this man? What is the identity crisis? Why are they running away from themselves? Why do they want to be another person? What is haunting them? What are they fearful about? Okay, what is their agenda to be or pretend like another person. By the way, can I stop there and ask, are they behaving the way we want them to behave? Do we have an imagination of the person we want, so they are trying to fit within our setup? That's a question for us, because this is a two-way traffic. Now, the other one to look at is there could be three possible issues. One is insecurity. I think Waguthi talked about insecurity. When people are insecure, chances are they lack love. You cannot give what you don't have. He didn't receive love, he cannot give you love. He will manipulate. He will tell you what you want to hear. What do you want to hear? That's a question we want to ask ourselves. What do you want to hear? When you are relating, do you agree on certain things? You know, there has to be some guidelines. If you are courting, if you're going to get married and you go to Reverend Jackie, have you done the proper premarital counseling? Or did you just tick the bucket list? This is not for the Reverend, this is for you. Because I think that is a time we unpack. It's better a broken engagement than a divorce. You can actually stop before you go very far. So we need to look at one, what are the insecurities around this person? What are the insecurities about people around him? Do a background check. You know, when we are dating, you don't want to tell anything about your boyfriend. You criticize, we become enemies. Kumbe, that is where the truth is. If you just do a little intel, somebody will tell you, hey, my sister, just hold on a bit. That's a background check. That is important. Of course, with the trusted sources of information. The other one you need to look out for is that, why was this person not loved? So the background about insecurity and love have a relationship. Did they not receive? Did they reject it? I think Waguthi has done a very good background on that. So if somebody has, and the first 5 years of a human being, it's a human being. Give me a 5-year-old, 0 to 5, I'll give you a gentleman or a lady. What we do here, if you're a parent and you are having your children, 0 to 5 is a make or break. They may have their own tabias halfway through, but they are likely going to get back on the road. So insecurity. Secondly, one is lack of self-worth. Supposing you meet somebody who has no self-worth. He has never been validated. He is always judged. Some patriarchal societies, even if our brother here, Robert, is a gentleman of many years, what can you say in front of this man? You're just a young man. So you're put down, you're quashed, you're an old husband with children, but you're little boys in ties. What is the role of patriarchy? In making people hide themselves. So somebody who's never been validated is somebody who is judged. A man who is judged will always have his antennas to defend himself. So the anger you talked about, the resentment you talked about, they all start coming, those little children start coming out. So this person was never validated. This person was never affirmed. And therefore, they have to find a coping mechanism, vengeance time. The next person they find, you are now dealing with a very endangered human being. Thirdly, is there are people who have had no significance. Nobody allowed them, they were never considered important. So you are a younger person. Okay, let me put it differently. So this is an older person who either has no material conversation in front of a table or does not have a lot of education. Now we live in societies where material and education really are given accolades far above character. So this person is unlikely to be seen a person of significance. What do you have? What can you say? The people with the money, your younger siblings and others who have titles and education, then speak when you're quiet. This guy is going to date somebody. So what is going to happen to my poor sister, to my poor daughter, to myself? This is where background is very important. So what therefore truth does, truth releases and liberates. The person we are dealing with is a caged animal. And a caged animal is going to show signs of wanting to go to the wild one time. They can't remain caged. They will attack. They will start manifesting. This is 5, this is 6, this is 7 years into the relationship. And as again, Robert said, you've invested your whole life self. And this guy is in a different dilemma, is in a different geography. So there could be things, again, that are acquired. It could just be somebody who turns out different. There are people who just take a different character, the way they are socialized, the people they keep, the characters they keep. People go to different schools. People go to different experiences. What happens after that? If the person is of a weaker character and they pick, especially people who've not been validated, people who have not had significance, and somebody who is insecure, whatever comes, they'll pick. So they take their own personality. And then we now start dealing with what you are calling a wolf in a sheep's skin.
Yes. Zippy, you have unpacked it excellently, the root causes. And I'm glad at the beginning we put a rider, let's be slow to judge. Let's know that these people are coming from a history. I don't think there's anybody who wakes up and says, when I grow up, I'm gonna be a wolf in sheep's clothing. I don't think so. I think it's important for us to look into the root causes of what could have led this person. In particular, I liked the question you asked, why does he need to pretend to be somebody else? You know, I always tell my friends, I was so affirmed when I was growing up. My dad, I was a daddy's girl. I was so affirmed that I was shocked when I discovered that there are people who don't like me, because me, I grew up being liked. So when I discovered it's not everybody likes me, I was shocked because I grew up affirmed and assured that I was a good person and I was loved and nobody should hate me, nobody should not like me. So I like what you brought out, like there must be a reason that somebody decides to be that. Nobody wants to be dysfunctional. Nobody wants to be a wolf in sheep's clothing. Nobody wants to deceive somebody else. Everybody wants a nice relationship. You settle down, you deal upfront, open, transparent. I believe that's the default of every human being. Okay, there's deception, but I don't think there's anybody it's hard work also. You know that deception is not easy also. It's a lot of hard work. So I like that, and I like that you said that we need to check. So in fact, what you've told me, Zippy, is that if any of us mothers here with sons of that age to become wolves, we need to examine, we need to look, are there any of these traits that might be there that would cause our nephews, our sons, our grandchildren to turn out to be wolves in the future, wolves in sheep's clothing? It's very important. Thank you so much, Zippy. Now, I think you've heard it for yourself. There's depth here. There is solutions, or rather insight that you can get from people like Zippy in her profession, in what she does. And as I said, I have the contacts of these precious men and women here who are willing to hear you out and to help you understand where you're at and what is causing what it is causing. Because I know what Zippy spoke just now resonated with a lot of you. You've seen it in your brothers, in your sons, maybe if you're a man in you. Irene and Kezi, are there men on board? I don't know who's on board. Tell them not to panic. We're gonna go to the she-wolf. So we're not just concentrating on the wolf in sheep's clothing. We will definitely unpack the she-wolf. So they shouldn't feel like we're being biased, like we're being biased. Zippy, I like the way you said, better a broken engagement than a divorce later. I think that's so important. I think sometimes the reason why many people don't want to break an engagement or even a wedding on the day before. I have a friend who broke her wedding the day before. The cards were out, the rice was out, everything was out. But she came to a revelation that it wasn't right. And I admired her for it, because it's not right, it's not right. Why get into it just to please everybody who's arriving? What shall we do with the guests? What will we do with the caterers? We've already paid the photographer. I think those are non-issues when you're talking about your destiny and your life. So I like that statement. It's better a broken engagement than a divorce and pain later. Thank you so much, so much. I hope this has been recorded, because I know there are those who may not have attended who will want to hear this. Now, let me move on to Pastor George Mathu. Pastor George, I kept you last because of the honor I have for you, Pastor George. And I want you to be the one to take the questions last at every point. And you may be asking whether we prayed for the session like you've taught me. Yes, we did. We may not have prayed on screen, but we definitely prayed where I am. I'm with some people, and we definitely prayed for the function. We prayed for the session. So I am obeying how you mentored me. So we did commit the issue to God, and many of my friends, my girls, my team, we've been praying about this, and we've committed it to the Lord, because we know nothing can work without the presence of the Lord and the Holy Spirit. So Pastor George, I want to invite you with the following question. Now I think I need to make a statement that Seasoned Woman Forum, we minister to the woman in the marketplace. We do minister to the families in the marketplace. We do address issues. We don't hide and bury our heads in spirituality where we don't want to address the issues out there. But ultimately, foundationally, we are based and we are founded on the Word of God, because we believe that's where the real answers come from. That's where the real truth is. So as a vision, we are anchored on the principles of God. And that's why you find I have these reverends and pastors on the webinar, because I want us, even as we talk and share, to always come back and get grounded to what does God say about the situation. So Pastor George, I'm going to ask you, how can you as a pastor protect ladies in your church, because you have a church, Eagles Faith, from the tactics of a wolf in sheep's clothing? How would you minister to them, and how would you warn them?
First of all, thank you so much, Sally. Thank you for this amazing, amazing forum with all this. My God, I've learned so much. I'm just scribbling and doodling notes. I didn't get to know what Zippy does, but Zippy, thank you so much for all that truth. You know, so many things. I listened to Rose and my good buddy Robert Burale and Waguthi. Oh, Waguthi, my God. This is, what a forum, Sally. And can I also congratulate you for your boldness to step out and do what you couldn't do before, or do what you didn't know you could do. So thank you so much. Thank you. It takes courage. They say this, and I love how you penned off talking about the affirmation you received from your folks, your dad, your mother, especially your father, We are made by those who love us and those who refuse to love us. And the deal is when I was looking at this, a very simple suspect suitors, wolf in sheep's clothing. Jesus put it this way in John 10 and verse 10. He says, the thief does not come except to kill, to steal, and to destroy. And then he says this, I have come that you might have life, but you might have life in abundance. So the life that God has for you is an abundant life. When God comes to you, he brings out the best in you. He loves the little girl. He takes away the insecurities that you could not address. So the deal here is, I think when you're looking at the wolf, you're talking about a guy who's really, and a woman for that matter, who's really a victim of his own circumstances many times. I'm looking at people who haven't yet received love and proper nourishment and come from dysfunctional relationships. I just love that analogy of the suckling baby and what is registered in the child as from such an early age. So this whole deal about, Sally, about affirmation, receiving love from God, your ability to receive love from God, it is so fundamental. We can't run away from it. I see it every time in church. You will see people who've, people who've come from loving homes, places that they've been affirmed and grown up well. you find that these people find it much easier to relate with others. And so can we teach in church? And this is the deal. As a pastor, the pastor must bring his flock to a place where they know God for themselves. So it's not about hearing God from another source. Now, even we in the charismatic circles, and we got to be careful with this, coming from a prophet, and we come from a prophetic church, prophetic background, but it is so easy to relegate responsibilities of knowing God to the other person other than to ourselves. God wants you to stand on your own 2 feet. God wants you to know him for himself. So when you know God for yourself, and this is strong, this is so important, Sally, this is so fundamental. If we can't teach people to know God for themselves, it's impossible for them to stand up on their own 2 feet. So teaching and the word, Proverbs 4 verse 20, my son, attend to my words, attend. It's a personal thing. It's an intimate thing. He's saying, attend to my words, incline your ear to my sayings. Hide them, the Amplified says, in the midst of your heart, having a love relationship with a God who you've never met. Having a love relationship with this God who is creator of all things. But if you can receive that love relationship from him, if you can have a love relationship from God, there is nothing I cannot deal with out there. So attend to my words, incline your ears to my sayings, hide them in the midst of your heart. And then he says, for they are life to those who find them and health to all their flesh. So I'm talking about the security we receive when you have a personal relationship with God. So it's not about he said, she said, they prophesied, they did this, because we are in a day where we're getting close to witchcraft in the church. You've almost like, and this is so important for especially you girls out there. Especially you girls out there. We relegate the responsibility of lifetime relationships to a person said, a person spoke. Well, they say, well, they prophesied I was going to get into a relationship with that guy. You don't know the guy. No personal background. You don't even, you know nothing. You don't even know their folks. You don't know anything. You don't know how they grew up. You don't know their friends. But they gave you a word. They said you were going to marry that guy, and almost witchcraft. Almost witchcraft, because God will never take away your personal. If he was to take away your personal will, it would be an affront. God wants you to love him for himself, to make the decision to love him, to choose him. So he will never have another person choose a mate for you. This is fundamental, and this is important, because this drives to the issue of insecurity. I'm not secure enough to make a decision for myself. And that goes to the core of who we are. But if the word, and I'm going to say this because you can also come to God on your own terms. But when you come to God, he says, you deny yourself, take up my cross and follow me. So you don't come to God on your own terms, you come to God on his terms. He says, if you will put me first, then I will make sure that everything I have access to, which means love, security, provision, a sense of self-worth, everything I have access to, then you become a part of, because you become my child. I think Sally, without blowing, I don't want to, go into too much depth, but if we can teach people that they can have a personal relationship with
God. Thank you so much, Pastor George. You couldn't have put it better. It all boils down to that. And you've pointed that I deal with so many ladies who said they received a prophecy that this is the person they are going to end up with. This is the right person for them. And you've asked the right question. Without them being able to have a personal relationship with God, to come to that revelation and that conclusion themselves, And God does not tell us not to look at the characteristics of a person. And I think there's this, especially in the charismatic world, where we overemphasize on the prophetic that, as you say, becomes almost like witchcraft, where you're waiting for somebody else. And one girl I dealt with a few weeks ago was telling me deep in her, she could tell this was not the person for her. Everything about him was wrong. You know, he's like this, he's lazy, he's what? And she was wondering, why would God want her to settle down with a man like that? Yet somebody was trying to convince her, God is showing me that this is the man for you. Manipulation. And I like that you've been so candid about that, because it's happening a lot, especially in the body of Christ, the charismatic church, of where people are too lazy to know God for themselves. They want to ask the pastor, is this the one for me? Or pastor to lead me, or somebody else to tell me. I love that your role is to teach us to know God for ourselves. Because pastor, when I know God for myself, then I can hear God for myself. I can discern the Holy Spirit. I can discern the leading of the Holy Spirit. I can be able to meet somebody. And because I know God for myself, I know how God speaks. And I know what his word says about what I look out for. Because even these days you have people saying, pray for me, pray for me. And my spiritual mother is always telling us, what is this nonsense of pray for me, pray for me, pray for me? Yeah. Pray for yourself. You're a child of God. So let's take responsibility. Know God for yourself. Pray for yourself. God is not an author of confusion. He will lead you in the right path. And one thing I've always stood on, Pastor George, is that God's power to lead us into truth is greater, far greater than the devil's power to lead you astray. So honestly, if I know God for myself, if I'm reading his word, if I'm in a place of prayer, if I'm sitting under authority and receiving teaching, I will hear God and I will discern what's not right for me. So thank you so much for bringing out that clearly and helping us to know that your role as a pastor, teach us to have a personal relationship with God, that we may be able. I also like the fact that there's self-will. God will not force us. He will not force us into a situation. He allows us, using what we know of him and what he has taught us in his word, to come to a decision for ourselves. So you live with your decision based on what the word says, and you test it against his word and against what God stands for. Thank you so much, Pastor George, for that. This is rich. This is really, really rich. Now, I go back very quickly because I'm now looking and saying, gosh, by the way, this is the same panel I will have for all the 7 suitors going forward. We're going to do this for 7 months. Every type of suitor will be analyzed bit by bit. We will go thorough. We're not going to go over and skip over. This is even one of the mildest suitors. The others are really dangerous. So we're going to go through this and get all the angles with this same panel going forward for the next couple of months. So I'm going to go back to Pastor Jackie, and I'm going to ask you the following question, Pastor Jackie. And I'm going to put 2 questions in one because of time. Now, you've already told us, I think what I need you to tell us is, once I've been in that relationship with a wolf, and like your friend, I got married and I lost my 10 years of my destiny because I was in the wrong relationship. It ended up exactly how it's wrong. How do I recover? What is the redemption? How do I pick up the pieces? How do I get up and admit I made a mistake, but it's not lost? We serve a God of second chances. Life is never lost just because of one mistake. How do I recover from that mistake and learn from it? What did you advise your friend going forward so that she doesn't do the same thing? And those who watched her so that they also don't make the same mistake. How can you redeem yourself from that situation?
It's tough. It's tough, Minister Sally, to come back from something where you've been so devastated. I remember when I made the phone call to them. She was living in New York at that time, and I wanted her to pull a waiting to exhale move on that person. You know, throw out all their clothes, set them on fire, change their locks. Can you hear me?
Back one, Pastor Jackie.
Yes, ma'am.
Just say that again, because we're writing notes. Me and my girls are writing notes. Yeah. So you said you advised her to number one.
I was actually I was so angry at the when it got to that state. And remember, I was a pastor at that time.
Yeah.
But I was so angry with the way she was treated. I actually wanted her to pull a waiting to exhale move, dump all his clothes. Yeah, in the movie.
It's called, yes, waiting to exhale, to exhale him.
Throw all his
Explain
clothes
to
out.
my women. Not all my women understand exhale.
That.
Please explain to my women.
Basically, you know, it's like she had been so filled with this person, she needed to exhale and get this person
breathe him out. To breathe him out. Okay.
And in breathing him out, it may take you to do some dramatic and drastic things to let go of this person, you know, burn his clothes in the front lawn, you know, change their locks, get a restraining order. I mean, it had to be, it felt like it needed to be that drastic.
Drastic, yeah.
Yeah, a drastic move, because unless she was shaken out of almost that stupor that she was in, I honestly believe that she would have died, not just metaphorically, but also, you know, physically, really. You would have driven her to that place. And you know, it may seem a bit weird for a pastor to give that kind of advice, but he had broken every vow that made them husband and wife. You know, in terms of I told you he had almost spouses on 2 different continents. And he was not shy of talking to her about them. So basically, you need to come to a place where it is this thing is you need to shake. I've like someone's
radical.
Radical.
Exactly.
Because you know, sometimes they say, you know, a wild animal can mesmerize you. You know, like a snake, before it eats you, it will mesmerize you and keep you frozen. Frozen that you can't think for yourself, you can't act for yourself, you know, you can't do anything. So basically, if I was to advise someone who found themselves in such a situation, what do they do next? I think even biblically, particularly if there's infidelity, that even the Bible allows that you can separate yourself from this person.
Yeah.
You know? And if your life particularly is at stake, because some of these people are very good emotional abusers. And sometimes, you know, someone will tell you, I'd rather someone hits me physically because that pain will go. But when someone rips at my soul, at the fabric of my being, those scars take a lot longer before they actually go. And usually nobody sees them because they're inside. They're in you, nobody sees them. And so everyone thinks, you know, what's going on with you? Why are you acting up? Why are you being like this? But they don't know the kind of damage that's been done to your soul, to your emotions, to your mind, you know, to your spirit, you know. And she was a believer and he wasn't. So even her spiritual life was so heavily affected. You know, part of what I would, you know, if I was to counsel, and I'm not a professional counselor, and I could get someone to talk to a professional counselor, but if they were to sit with me, one of the things that I would ask them to do is to definitely remove themselves from that situation. You know, you can't keep a sheep and a wolf in the same pen.
Atmosphere, no.
You can't do that. You know, the sheep will be eaten, will be devoured. You know, one of the things that I also mentioned to this particular person was to watch out for aggression. You know, for aggression. Because sometimes, you know, you can be so beaten down that, and you know, thank God he never physically, you know, abused her. But there'll be times when you can be so beaten down emotionally that when the physical abuse begins, you actually think you deserve it. And you stay in that place, you know. And I've heard some women who've been so messed up that they say, at least if he beats me, it shows that he cares.
Oh my God.
You know, that is a lie of the devil, you know. But the minute he goes and crosses some boundaries, it is time to take care of yourself. There was
let me recap that, Pastor Jack. You've put it so well. And I need the ladies to really, really listen to this, because it's so important. Because I know I have dealt with a lot of women, Pastor Jackie, who don't get this point about disconnecting from that toxic relationship. And it takes a physical. When you talk of the exhaling him, like really literally uproot him from your very being, uproot it from your spirit, from your emotions, from your mind, from physically. I like throw out his clothes. Yes, any memoirs, anything you shared. Sometimes I even tell women, move out of the house you shared, move out, because those memories and that past is what comes to haunt you. So there's the physical disconnection, like in terms of the clothes, the memoirs, the furniture, the atmosphere, the house, even if you're sharing a house, to really get a new start on it. I like the idea. I'm a lawyer by profession, so the restraining order I deal with all the time, because it is true. Sometimes some of these wolves do not give up so easily. They will actually come and try and keep contact, and they get aggressive if you're looking like you're getting wise and you're breaking the contract. And a restraining order is a legal instrument and a legal weapon that we can get for you as lawyers. We apply and we justify to the court that you have reason to believe that this person could cause you harm. And for that reason, you would like the court to give an order to restrain him from coming anywhere near you. Sometimes it's even like anywhere near your house, anywhere near your children, anywhere near your workplace. And these orders work, and they're very important. And then lose his number. What is this about keeping his number on your phone? If you know you're not going to call him again, lose the number, delete the number, delete the number. That's a physical, radical measure. And then the issue of professional counseling, because sometimes I tell women, let's not think it's so easy. Let's be very careful when we meet these women who have been battered emotionally, mentally, spiritually. They've been pushed to a place where, as you say, Pastor Jackie, they don't know, they believe in things that are not true. She believes it's her fault. She believes he beats her because he loves her. Now, this kind of woman needs careful counseling professionally. Zippy, my friend, I'm not a professional counselor, Pastor Jackie, so I'm always very careful. And Zippy has taught me, don't open a wound that you can't close. So even with our Korogosho women and girls, she always tells me, if we're going to do a session where we're going to tell them to talk about their fathers, any abuse, be careful, Sally, make sure we have enough time that if we open those wounds, we will have time to close them. And we have the professional skills. Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, that I really respect skills. I am one who is a sucker for, you know what I don't know. If you know what you know about, today I was telling my manager, we don't know about bulbs. If I don't know about which is a tube light, what is a what, let's get a professional. Let's get the electrician, Simon. Let's not purport to know what we don't know. I believe in skills. If this is an area for professionals, because you may come to me and I damage you even more. I start giving you advice that makes you even go back and become emotionally deranged. Let's trust the professionals. Let's trust that God has skilled people among us, like in a Zippy, in our world, who can sit you down and take you through this kind of thing and help you out of emotional bondage and whatever it is. Thank you so, so much, Pastor Jackie. I agree with you. I support that. Radical measures. It's not about small time measures. It's a radical disconnection. Very quickly now,
before you go on, Minister, because
yes,
I know I mentioned this from the perspective of somebody who's actually married, but I really think it's important for someone who's single here to be able to understand four areas that they need to look out for so that they don't get themselves into a marriage that ends up being, with a man with, and if you'd allow me just quickly just to mention these four things that they need to do.
Yes.
These wolves in sheep's clothing, number one, are charmers. So you need to learn to ask questions. Don't be clouded by his charm and how he's wooing you. Ask deep questions. Find out about the background, the things that, Zippy talked about. What's their family background? What was their childhood like? Ask questions. Don't be shy. Because if you don't ask questions, you will have to carry the burden beyond its go beyond the charm and dig deep. That's the first thing I'll tell anyone who thinks they may be dating someone who's a wolf. Second, I think this is critical. If you have a good father, expose that man to your father. If you don't have a good father, expose him to father figures, either your pastor, men that
wise older men, yes.
Because your father will see through. Actually, he will call it out. And then trust your judgment, that they're not just saying no. but they've seen something, because these sheep, these wolves cannot hide.
Hello?
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 What's up?
I don't know. They seem to have been blacked out.
Yeah, we seem to have an outage, and some of our panelists are out. We're trying to...
Everybody. Everyone's out?
Well, I'm here. I don't know. I can hear somebody asking. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Rob.
I'm here.
All right. Zippy is also here.
Can you hear me?
Zippy, I
Pastor
hear you.
George is here. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Looks like the host has been blacked out, eh?
Yeah, as we are trying to get Sally back, perhaps we can just shoot some questions that came in. We have a couple of questions, just as my colleague Irene is trying to get Sally back. Zippy, I trust you can hear me?
Yes.
There are a couple of questions here for you,
yes.
And perhaps we could just jump into them.
Yeah.
So the first question is, if the 0 to 5 window has passed, and I think here we are talking about our boys and girls, what can be done to substitute the lack of affirmation and the identity crisis? And that particular one is concerning children. There's also a comment that came in from a gentleman, and this is what he says, Zippy. This question goes to you. For 17 years, I have been in drug and alcohol addiction. 11 years ago, I took myself to rehab. I have always wanted to move on, but I have been defined and pulled back by my past and was still from people closest to me. This pain, definitely, I have passed it down to my spouse. And the question is, how do I move on? How do I move on from here? And that question for you, Zippy, so that you can answer them in one round is, I believe I asked that one. So just take those two, and then we will move on as we're trying to get everybody back in. Thank you.
Okay, let me start with the last one. One of the tragedies of society is to judge and to keep you judged. It happens, people go to jail, they are released, they come back, we don't accept them. Sometimes people don't accept themselves because they've been injured for too long. So if the person asking the question has done their bit, it's very difficult to walk this journey on your own. What you need now is support for your new environment so that you stay on the course, you don't drift back. So my suggestion will be twofold. Get yourself into a coach who helps you with your next steps, because you're at a crossroad. That's a work of a coach. You're at a crossroad, they hold your hand and they help you to move on. But there's need for a combination of both a coach, and the coach needs to be aware when to refer you to a therapist. Mm-hmm. Secondly, once you have done your bit, it is important for your immediate support to also go through a coaching and a therapy session so that they can support you. So you don't tell them what you are told. So again, we can ask the difficult questions and we can help them to see the new you. They need to restate you